Are you a manipulator? Are you an influencer? Are you there to help people or only to get what you want? Both manipulators and influencers understand human nature, human motivation, what drives people to take action on certain ideas. But while manipulators will utilize that knowledge for their own ends only, influencers will never do that. My name is Stephane Reinhardt, Director of Education for the C.L.E.A.R Institute. Welcome to the Odd Couple. Gerry, how are you, my friend?
Good. I'm great. I guess I'm like the rest of the civilized world, hoping for the best with this vaccine. Things can get back to a more desirable lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know, my vision of this, Stephane, is people say get through it. No, I prefer to think of it as let's get on the other side of it, which we're never going to get through it. I mean, this is likely to be the most influential thing that's happened to a generation.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been other highly influential things, you know, in here in the States, September 11th and so on. But this is going to be certainly there are permanent changes that are obvious. You know, one of which is distance medicine and distance dentistry.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of an interesting thought because medicine here in the States, as far as virtual visits or remote medicine, is way ahead of dentistry. Here at the American Dental Association, I read something very recently, as in, I think it was either last week or even Monday of this week, that their comment about this remote treatment is that it has to mimic an in-office experience in dentistry. It's not possible.
Right. It's not possible. It has to be something different. It is different. It's something else.
And
it's something else. I was reading this morning from the Harvard Business School an article on this, on telemedicine and the changes that this pandemic, this COVID brought. And they said that before that was less than 1% of the appointments or whatever with physicians that were made virtually. They've reached a top, I think, of over 20% in May or something like that. And now they're down to about 15%. But it was less than 1%. And people they surveyed, I think they had more than 1 million answers from surveys they did. And the reaction of patients, what they were saying mostly is that they felt that the physician or the doctor or the specialist they had the meeting, the virtual meeting with, were more focused on them than when they would see them live. They said that when we see them live, sometimes they look at their computer, they look at something else, they seem always preoccupied with something else. When we have them on our screen, first, the patient, they feel more relaxed. They are in their environment, and they had the impression that the specialist or the physician or whatever were more focused and concentrated directly on the patient.
No, that makes sense. I mean, they're looking at a screen.
Yeah, that's it. It's the same as if you're doing a virtual consultation with a patient. As a dentist, you're doing a virtual consultation, you schedule time for this, you're in front of your screen, you're talking like we're doing now. And I read, I don't remember where I read that, but again, they were saying about the same thing, that patients book more appointments through a consultation like this because they are in their environment. They feel more secure than being on the dental chair. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that, makes complete sense, right? And from a patient standpoint, it makes complete sense. Also, the patient doesn't want to come to the office if they don't have to. I mean, for all kinds of reasons that are obvious. But
even more now.
From the doctor's perspective, think of the fact, like in dentistry, that you're going to have to gear up with all this personal protective equipment. I mean, the whole team is.
Yeah.
And if it's a teledental visit, obviously you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
In talking to Larry Gerald, and people listening will probably recall, he's an orthodontist as well as a lawyer, and has a degree in ethics and the humanities from Columbia University in New York. And talking to him about this, his comment is, the main thing you have to decide is it necessary to get the patient into the office? And this is dentistry, but it would be the same in medicine. And if so, how quickly?
Yeah.
And make sure the patient understands that. But it's like this recording you're doing. There's no question what was said and who it was said to. That being the case, my understanding is that if you were to tell a dental patient, I really do need to see you. I don't need to see you necessarily tomorrow unless something is hurting you. But given that that's not the case, I do need to see you within the next week or 5 days or 10 days or 2. What you need to give them a specific amount of time and tell them you need to call the office. What would the reasonable office do if the patient doesn't contact the office? I mean, there's going to be a responsibility, again, at least here in the US, and probably the same in Canada, that if the patient doesn't contact the office, that the office makes a few attempts to contact the patient that are documented. Because again, one has to remember that we are now within cultures. I don't know about Canada, I'm curious, but here it's never the patient's fault. It's never the person's fault. It's always somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
So you can blame.
My interrogation, my questions about this are, what I was thinking is that we're talking about this virtual thing, okay, because it's going to be where we're going to see the patient. But before that, a patient that has an emergency or whatever, they would call the office and they talk to the front desk. What's best? Is it because now they talk to the front desk, they explain their problem to the front desk, and they are taking the decision? I mean, you're saying, well, you have to decide if they have to come now, or so. What about when they're talking to front desk, talking about their emergency, talking about what is best, to be able to talk directly to the dentist about it, like you would, saying the same thing you would probably say on the phone call, but at least have a professional talking to you directly? Or so what? And when you come with this thing of what is legal, so if they only talk to front desk, then there's no issue if they don't tell the patient you have to come now. If a patient says that things about their condition and the front desk is just figuring out, well, this is not an emergency. You as a dentist, you're working in the back. You have no idea what happened. So who's responsible for that?
Well, what do you do in your office now?
Right, this is how it works. I have no idea of the phone calls that get through if they don't talk to me about it. If my front desk, my secretary doesn't come to me to say they have a question because of Mrs. or Mr. that has this problem. Like me, how it is. You know how it is at the front. Sometimes how busy they are, and nobody means to do something wrong. But my question is that why does it seem to be more an issue if you're doing it virtually like this with the camera, than having your front desk answer the phone that you have no idea what they're saying to patient, even though you train them, you're not there. And in my 29 years of practice, it happened that I heard things that was said after that made no sense.
Well, when I was in practice, I had the law of the jungle, my law, that if when someone called the front desk, that the front desk person had to check with me about what was happening. If there was any question, like if the let's say it was a parent calling about a child, because you'll recall that I only treated children and teenagers by and large in orthodontics. The question was, is there anything hurting your child? Is something hurting? Is something really bothering them? And if the answer was yes, the front desk would say, what time? These are the times I can offer you today. Because Dr. Samson, he's going to want to see you, because I have to tell him what happened here, and he's going to want to see you today. Now, if the parent said, I can't come in today, then the front desk's instructions were to check with me immediately. Now, if I was in a consult with another patient, the front desk person would then say, Dr. Samson's with somebody right now. As soon as he's finished, I'm going to call you back. And I only had, as you know, one front desk person.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, well, I don't know who did that. If you have 2 or 3 front desk people, that can get lost.
Or you have, the office, my office, we're 5 dentists. We have, I think, 30 employees, and some of them I don't even know the name now. I don't.
Nice. They're going to watch this.
No, maybe, but I mean, they probably don't know my name either. So that's, I remember when I was a young dentist, or when I was starting, I saw a movie with Steve Martin. The title is Novocaine. Novocaine? How you say it?
Yeah, Novocaine.
Novocaine. And he's a dentist in the movie, and he enters his office. It's a big office. So he enters by the front door. He's in the waiting room, and the secretary looks at him and says, hi, sir, do you have an appointment? And he looks at her and says, I own the place. And for me, it was like, wow, who will I get to this point? Well, this is where I am now. I'm
really?
Like I'm telling you. Well, there's a couple of girls I don't really know their name, and like I'm telling you, I'm pretty sure there was one this week. I was in the I was sitting in the kitchen, and she entered, and I'm sure she was wondering, who's that guy and what is he doing in the kitchen? Because I'm there 2 days a week now, and so there's some girl that they do not usually work on a Monday and Tuesday there, so they never see me, and so that's fun. But let's go back to our subject.
Let's see. The subject is it's
no, but it goes with what we were saying. We're talking about, it's, and I think it goes with what we're living right now, what we're seeing. You were talking about the vaccine, and what we wanted to talk about today was the difference between influencing and
manipulating.
That's it.
Yeah.
And there is.
It's shocking we can actually remember what we were going to talk about.
Well, that's actually, this is why we say it in the previous episode, because I'm sorry I dropped my hand.
Yeah.
But that's, and I think the vaccine, when you look at the social media, you look at everything that is said about the vaccine, everything that is written, you have, and we think of our patient, and when when I was lecturing live, we were talking about how we talk to patient, how we do our consultation, how do we talk about orthodontics, how do we talk about clear aligners, how in the dentist, how can you sell cases, how can you, I mean, what's our role as dentists, orthodontists, or and I was always saying our role is to influence our patients. And a lot of dentists would say, "Oh, I don't want to. I'm not a manipulator. I'm not a." And this is where I was saying, no, it's not the same thing.
No, it's
For
not.
me, it's completely different.
Now, what do you think the difference is?
The difference for me is you influence people you like, you influence people you love. I influence my kids, my children. I influencing for me is um, getting people to take the right decisions. There's no hidden agenda. There's no it's for the benefit of everyone. Um, Manipulating is for my own benefit. I have a hidden agenda. Everything is for me. It's me, 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 me. I will influence my children to take the right decisions when it has to be for school or whatever. I will try to guide them. For me, it's more like guiding. And this is what I mean when you talk to your patient, when you talk about you want to influence them to take the right decisions for their dental health. So this is influencing. And again, I make another distinction with educating. And I think this is the piège in French. We say this is get where a lot of dentists get caught because they're trying to educate their patient. And educating their patient for a dentist means they're trying to give them a dentist course. They're trying to make dentists out and they lose the patient. This is not, I think, what we should do. We have to explain things, but we have to influence them in taking the right decision for what's going to be good for them. If I manipulate them, I'm pushing them to take decisions that are good for me. This is how I see it.
How do you decide what's best for them? Because
This is
like you're pivoting on what's best for them.
Well, that's a very good question because I've heard sometimes people say my golden rule is I treat people like I would treat myself. Well, I think it's better to treat people like they would treat themselves.
Yeah,
I mean that's it, because maybe what's good for me is not really what's good for them. What do they want? What do they? I mean that's the other thing. What do they want? What does your patient want? It probably maybe not don't need the same thing that I use a lot of times. I use with patient. If it was my daughter, this is what I would do. But again, like a lot of time you're saying, when somebody asks you what should I do, I don't know what you should do. I can tell you what I would do. I have no idea what you should do.
Well, I think it's a as we say, a fit or a dovetail with the definition of evidence-based from the Cochrane group. The definition of evidence-based is the best treatment available at the time the treatment was given or rendered for that individual. If you look it up, it'll say for that individual. That means what
at the time.
At the time, which opens up that there might be a better treatment later or better advice. But it says for the individual. So a key thing is to figure out what the individual wants, or if it's a minor, let's say a child or a adolescent, what is it that the parents want? Because the parents are legally responsible.
Mm-hmm.
And then does that match up with what the patient, the adolescent or the child wants? Because in these days where it's very contemporary, it seems, for parents to ask their children's permission I assure you
Well,
that when I was a boy, my parents were not asking my permission.
oh,
They weren't
well,
saying, well, now you're going to do what the doctor says. Okay.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
it was the
Now,
same thing with your teacher.
yeah, no, that's right.
They were not questioning the teacher. If the teacher said something, you were in trouble. But now,
Yeah. Now, and it, as we've talked about, I think that people have to respect the modern culture. They have to respect what the family wants. I mean, not every family is doing this where they're asking their 8-year-old, is it okay? Straighten up your room. Okay. Time to do your homework. Okay. Put down your phone that you're playing games. Okay. Uh, Not every family is doing that. And I think it's a skill set, don't you, to figure out with the patient family or the adult who's making the decisions
mm-hmm.
or who are making the decisions. Because, in some families, the husband defers to the wife as the person who's going to influence the decision.
The boss. I have to talk to my boss.
Yeah, the
I
boss.
say,
Now,
I have to talk to my boss.
there's an interesting thing about looking up leadership and coaching, and what is successful in the long run. So, does a leader influence people? Do they manipulate people, or do they do both? What do you think? Because a boss a leader. Is a really good leader a boss?
It's different. For me, it's different. A boss will tell people what to do. A leader doesn't tell people what to do. A leader doesn't decide he's a leader. A leader, I mean, if you cannot tell yourself, I'm a leader. Other people have to tell you're a leader. This is how I see it. A leader is somebody you want to follow. Is somebody you want. I cannot figure out that. For me, somebody would write in their business card, they're leaders. I'm sorry, it's not for you to decide. You can decide, yeah, maybe you're a boss. We cannot argue with that. You're the boss. That's it. You're the boss. You tell me what to do. You tell me, but you may be my boss. Doesn't mean you're a leader. You can be both. You could be both. I hope in a certain way I am with my team. But I would certainly not quote myself as being their leader. If they tell me that I was a good leader for them, I will accept it. But if it comes from yourself, for me, it doesn't worth. I won't say the word.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Because for example, in Zen Buddhism or Zen, there's a saying from, I think it's Lao Tzu, that those that claim to be the Buddha obviously are not. And in Zen, I've read a modest amount about this. I wouldn't call myself some authority, but some of the things I'm interested in is, well, a Zen master would never say they were the Zen master.
That's it.
It's what you just said. The students are the ones that say that. I mean, a teacher or a coach doesn't say, like Vince Lombardi, they don't say I'm a great coach. They are a great coach.
That's it. You can't. You just can't say that.
Yeah,
it's like saying I'm a great dentist, or I mean, it's not for you to decide. You may have your opinion on that, maybe. I mean, and what does it mean to be a great dentist? Does it mean to be good technically? Does it mean to be good with patient, good in relation? Does it mean to be good I could be really good in diagnostic, but really bad manually. I could be really bad in diagnosing thing and really good manually. I could be really bad in getting in relation with what's a good dentist? Is it the one who will be like, as you know, good in all these things, average in all these things, but that makes a great dentist? Or who decides who's a great dentist? And here, look, hey, listen to people. They all have the best dentist. Everybody has the best dentist.
Well, that's interesting because there's a there's an orthodontist, if he's still practicing, that among this orthodontist's peers, he was substandard. You wouldn't even say he was good. You would say not so good. But the patients loved the guy. And there was even a reliable report I heard about this individual that the patient said, well, I don't think he's a very good orthodontist, but he's such a nice guy and he's so funny. So let me ask you another question. Do you think that good leaders, there's good leaders, there's very good leaders, there's great leaders. Do you think they influence people or they manipulate people?
Well, for me, my definition, if you're a great leader, you influence people. That once you start manipulating people, for me, you have a hidden agenda. It's all about you. For me, I see it as a preacher, as a sect, for me, they are manipulators, but they can be perceived as leaders.
Yeah, I think any effective leader, and then I'll distinguish effective from really good or great. I think that they're functioning in the common good. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference, I think, between that. I'm paraphrasing what you're saying, Steve, that it's the difference between.
You're just translating so that people can understand.
Yeah. Just for the American audience.
In real English.
Yeah. In real English.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. What do people? Well, anyway, I don't want to get into that. So, what's in the common good, and I think that effective leaders stimulate people. They effective leaders have a vision. This comes from the book, The One Thing You Need to Know About Great Management, Great Leadership, and Sustained Individual Success by Marcus Buckingham. Quite an authority in this. If you look up Marcus Buckingham, if people listening look it up, you'll be impressed with his credentials. Very impressed. One of the books he also wrote was First, Break All the Rules. He also wrote that based on research. This is not just, he's not just pulling this out of his left ear. That great leaders have a great vision. And people get swept up in the enthusiasm and the clarity, as well as the positive nature of the vision. And people will forgive errors in leadership, but they will never forgive an error in the vision.
Yeah,
so if the vision is wrong, that is never forgiven. So there's a person I have in mind, but let me ask you, who was a great leader with a terrible, warped, sick vision?
The name starts with an H.
There you go.
Hitler.
Hitler was a great leader. Now, if you read anything about what's out there now, he and all of his sick sycophants were hyped up on methamphetamine. Mm-hmm. Most of the military was. Mm-hmm. The Blitzkrieg was, these people were absolutely hyped up on high levels of methamphetamine. Hitler was a great leader with a terrible, sick vision. Yeah. That the German and Austrian people and others are never going to escape. They'll never escape. That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
But you can have errors in leadership, just not errors in the vision. But great, or I should say effective leaders, they influence people. They're in the common good. They're not manipulating, because I agree with you. Plus, what's I did for prepping for this, you can even see my highlighted.
Wow, you're really prepared.
Well, I'm trying to pretend to be.
You're just putting some colors.
This is called coaching for leaders. If
Uh,
you want to look it up, manipulation is what happens when we influence someone to do something, and only we benefit from the
right,
action.
that's it.
It's interesting because you didn't look it up, did you?
No.
Yeah. Leadership, in contrast, works to ensure that both parties benefit. Now,
Benefits
both
everyone.
parties would be the company,
Yeah.
the culture. I mean, we just came, or are still coming through this presidential election here in the United States. That was, I just think it was a international and of historic proportions embarrassment.
Uh-huh.
Embarrassment.
2020. 2020.
It's 2020. Yeah, it's sort of like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, woo! And everybody's thinking now we need to get this over with. And now, for example, what now the switch in the news media here. I don't read all that much about. I mean, sort of like the highlights, but now I know they're coming after the liberal news media is now coming after Hunter Biden. I mean, this is the guy that they were coming after Trump for this and saying, no, he's wrong. And now all of a sudden, Biden's son, Hunter,
Yeah.
they're coming after him with the force of the U.S. intelligence, the FBI, and who's ever coming after him. And but they say, but his father had nothing to do with it. Yeah. Okay, sure. So, I mean, right there, you have a difference. You have the obvious. I think it's obvious. It's manipulation.
So that's it. That's one of the good example. What are the medias trying to do? Are they influencing people or they're manipulating people?
They're manipulating. And, it occurs to me in this conversation more at, how old are you, Stephane?
How old do you think I am?
I don't know, you're 55.
52.
Same thing. And do you recall how old I am?
You're just 20 years older than me.
God, I need to remember that. Right.
That's it. This is how I remember it.
Yeah. 72. And I have friends that I admire tremendously that are.
You could be my papa. That's a scary thought for both of us.
If somebody would have to say somebody's answer to that, they'd have to say, if Samson's the father, who's the mother? Because this ain't working, man. This is no. I mean, this is like the agony and the ecstasy. I mean, if we were out on the hunt, as I call it, it's sort of like
on the hunt
of the young women, I'd be saying, okay, you see that guy over there? I'm number 2. I mean, number 2. I try harder. Look at that guy.
A lot of people prefer number 2.
Well,
they think number 1 is not accessible. You know about those really beautiful, good-looking people, men and women, saying that people think that they cannot be approached because they're so beautiful, and so that nobody goes and talk to them. They go to the number 2.
Actually, I did find that somewhat to be true. I was sort of like the mercy killing or a and I'm like an experimental animal. That's how I was.
Yeah. That's it.
I was like experimental animals. I can identify with that.
But just for the record, I don't see myself as number 1. This is not what I meant.
No, actually, that's interesting you say that because your friends, me included, are very aware of that you don't see yourself as an unusually handsome man. I mean, that's not your vision at all. Right. I mean, which actually is it's part of the definition I have of being charming is if you don't take yourself seriously at all. Look at him. He looks like, this is what happens when brothers and sisters mate. Look at this. I
have the eye that goes up like this. It's a good thing for those of you who are just listening to this and not, I mean, yeah, maybe you're missing something. Yeah.
Yeah, you can go back and
that's a go on YouTube and watch this.
You want to look at something else. So,
but yeah.
So I think that the difference in age and my friends who I admire, influence. Now, I would never admire somebody who is manipulative, but my friends who I admire, they actually ask them, how do you want to be remembered? And, you know, wouldn't be something I'd ask somebody who was concerned that if they were asked that question, that it might hasten their own demise. No, I wouldn't ask that to somebody that would make them feel uncomfortable. But it's sort of like, I think about what I like to have etched on my own headstone. I asked Ricketts that. Robert M. Ricketts, and I asked him that. He said, I'd like to be remembered that I made people think. That's good.
That's good.
That's good. And I don't think that I wouldn't want to have written on my headstone, he was manipulative.
No.
Right? Or how about this? He did have a positive influence. Not everybody liked him, but he did have a positive influence. I mean, that would be acceptable, right?
Yeah. Yes, of course. Yeah, it's acceptable. It could be, I mean, yeah, depending what you want. Did you decide? Is that it? This is what you want? Because this is recorded. So, I mean,
Actually, my father-in-law had the most appealing epitaph, and he wanted written on his headstone, he knew what to do, and he meant to do it, but he never got around to it. That's perfect. Here, let me mention this, and then we can sometime decide what our next rattle will be.
It will bring us to something, I'm sure.
Hold on, this is interesting because this is at least it's published. I don't know what it's based on because I looked it up and this is not an evidence-based deal. 7 ways to influence other people. So you haven't looked this up, right?
No.
So it makes it more interesting. These are 7 ways to influence other people by some sort of authority. I don't know if they're self-proclaimed or if they actually have substance. They are they've influenced other people, like Phil Jackson of the Bulls, the basketball team, or Vince Lombardi, or Bob Dylan, he's interesting because he doesn't want to influence anybody. He refuses. If you read anything about him, he absolutely refuses to have that hung around his neck or wear the hat that influence people. Okay, here's one. Best ways to influence other people: give them what they want. That's here. It's one of the bullet points, right? Give them. Do you agree?
To influence people, give them what they want.
Yeah,
I would not. No, it would not come. It's not something I would have thought of.
Me neither.
No.
Because I'm thinking, is what they want, because they want something for themselves.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we all do. It's, what am I going to get out of this? You know what? Let's, in conclusion, let me, this vignette, I know I've told you before, but people listening to this, if they've heard me speak on the subject, maybe they heard this. I was having dinner, a very, I can say, exclusive dinner. We had some friends that were getting married, and they were getting married in very exclusive venue in Chicago. There were only 12 people invited to the ceremony. It was a renewal of vows.
Okay.
Okay. Something that I find very unappealing and unnecessary for myself, but okay, I get it. So that's what they're doing. And the person who's going to perform the ceremony of the renewal of vows was a highly respected Jesuit. Mm-hmm. And I think all I'll say is that this person was very influential, very, by every definition, and had a lot of responsibility to the Catholic Church, the Archdiocese, had a lot of responsibility to teachers, students, donors. He may still be there, but he was the head of an incredibly well-respected private school.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. So I wanted to sit next to the priest. So I told the woman who was renewing her vows, I said, I would like to sit next to the priest. She said, why? And I said, well, I want to talk to him. So she just said, okay. Mm-hmm. So as this is getting going, and I walked up and introduced myself, I said, I'm Gerry Samson. So he introduced himself. And then after the ceremony was over, she walked over to the priest and said, Gerry, why don't you sit here? So that it was a done deal. Mm-hmm. So we're sitting down, and he said, now I understand that we have some things in common. He said that to me. I said, oh, really? Because I'm not Christian. Mm-hmm. So I said, oh, really? What would that be? And he said, well, we're both educators. I said, we are. He was the head of this school. Mm-hmm. And then there's some more chit chat and sipping of beverage. And I said, Father, I'd like to ask you a question. And he kind of looked at me and he said, isn't that polite, calling me father? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I went to Marquette. I try to maintain some decent decorum. And I said, what I want to ask you is, what do you think motivates people? Now, when we talk about influence, that's a biggie, right? Because great leaders,
will motivate,
are great motivators. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I said, what do you think motivates people? And he said, to do what? And I said, everything, anything. I mean, you motivate teachers, mm-hmm. parents, donors, the church. Mm-hmm. I know you have a very respected position. And he looked at me, Stephane, he said, well, what do you think motivates people? And I said, no.
That's it. That doesn't work. No.
I said, no. I said, I asked first. I said, you answer, and I'm happy to answer. So you would like this yourself, Stephane. He didn't answer right away. Mm-hmm. He's thinking, and he's not really touching his food. He has a sip of beverage, and he said, well, and I'm thinking, what is he going to say? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he's fairly young to be in the position he's in.
Okay.
He was actually your age at the time.
Okay.
And to be in this position of influence, was big.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he looked at me and he said, well, in order to be motivated to action, because without taking action, there's no motivation. Mm-hmm. Good. Very mm-hmm. good. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, what's he going to say? He said, first, you have to understand what you're going to get out of it. And I said, excuse me? And he said, does that mean you disagree? He said, oh, no. I said, wait, I completely agree. But I think I'm probably the most self-centered person in the Western Hemisphere. So you're telling me that in order to be motivated to act, the person has to clearly understand what they're going to get out of it. And he said, that's right.
What's in it
And I
for
said,
me?
huh?
What's in it for me?
What's in it for me? Well said, blunt. And I said, I never, ever thought you were going to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, oh, I see. You thought I was going to say for the good of humanity or for the glory of God or for the church. I said,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's it. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no, you have to know what you're going to get out of it. And I said, all right, time out. What about the Mother Teresa? She's one of your folks.
Good
Mother
point.
Teresa.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He said, well, I met her. And I said, well, good. What about her? She put herself in such a precarious position all the time of disease. And he looked at me without any hesitation. He said, the work that she did brought her closer to her God. That's what she was getting out of it. And I said, wow, her God,
Mm-hmm.
is that different than your God? And he said, absolutely. And it's different than yours too. But he said, that's a story for another time. And I said to him, what about the Dalai Lama? He said, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
He said, listen, I've got people who donate so much money to the school or are such incredible donators to the church, the Catholic Church, that I can't believe someone could cut loose with that kind of money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are bizarre amounts of money.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a pledge, it's a donation. It's given up. And he said, some of these people, they want their name written on the cornerstone of the new edition of the school. They want to meet the bishop. They want to meet the Pope. And then there are others where the donation is completely anonymous.
That's it. You don't even know who it is. Uh-huh.
He said, Stephane, he said, no one knows who it is. The board of directors doesn't know. I'm the only person that knows because I have to know.
Yeah.
But no one else knows.
Uh-huh.
And he said, who's more noble? And I said, I wouldn't say that. And he said, neither would I, but they're both getting what they want.
They just have different, that's it. They just want something different. They see it differently and that's it. Uh-huh.
So the conclusion is that he was leaving not long after the meal was finished. I think he just stuck around for polite reasons and then left because, he had other things to do or thought, well, I might be better off to let people act out without a priest here. So either way, it was when he said to me, Gerry, I'm gonna be leaving shortly, and he said, I really enjoyed that conversation, and I said, I want to ask you something, Father. Had you not thought about this before? And he said, I have thought about it, but I've never talked to you about it.
Mm-hmm.
He said it was a different thing than thinking about it and having a conversation.
Yeah.
And I said, I won't forget this one. And he said, well, neither will I. And I think when you're trying to influence people, which means motivation. I mean, I didn't really see that in anything I looked up, but it means motivate them.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you're trying to influence them or motivate them to do. I mean, I think to be effective, one has to really have an interest in deciding what is it that this individual wants out of their actions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it has a big part, a big role to play in what we're doing. I mean, especially if you're treating patients, doing orthodontics, you need to influence them because you need this to work. You need their compliance. So you have to motivate them If you're a good influencer, you're a good motivator, then that's it. It's gonna work. I mean, you know, especially with, we always say that about clear aligners, any appliance, any elastics. If the patient doesn't understand what's in it for them, why would they wear the appliance? Why would they wear the elastics? Why would they? And what's in it for you as a dentist or an orthodontist? Or you want this to work?
Yeah, you want to get a result that you yourself are pleased with. I love it when people say, "Well, I'm doing this for the patient. I'm doing this for the child."
Yeah.
And again, when I think about why am I doing this? Like whether it's being a teacher or was when I was in private practice, I started realizing actually I'm not doing. My main motivation is not it's not for them. I mean, it sounds terribly. It sounds like I need therapy. So
No. But I think, you know, when we were saying it's for common good, that's it. It's not only for the patient. And again, like the father said, you have to get something out of it.
And actually, what I started realizing is I'm doing this more for my own good because I want a result that I am with, that I feel is a better than average result. So I'm really doing it more for myself. And as I would think about that, Stephane, I thought when things don't really work out, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's a dental situation. It doesn't matter. Whatever. When things don't work out, I can honestly say I did the best I could.
Yeah.
I did the best I could. I didn't say that the patient did the best they could.
No. Yeah.
And when these things would happen, just to give the listeners and viewers something that they may be able to adapt to their own personalities, I would say to the patient, I know you've done the best you can. Because I know I've done the best I can. And I think we can both live with that.
And that's it. This is where it brought us. And this is where we are. This is what the result is. And we both did the best we could.
It's a lot better than when you started. So one of my most important mentors that I know you're aware of was Harold T. Perry Jr. He was the department chairman at Northwestern. And I picked that up from him, to tell you. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost channeling him because he's been dead for a few years now, saying, I've done the best I can. And saying it with compassion, but acknowledging that, the patient did the best they could as well. I mean, they didn't try to do something defiant, because if they or their parents, if that's the situation, are defiant, that was a bad patient selection on my part, because in the States, as well as I'm sure in Canada, we do not have to treat somebody. That is not, you are making a selection of the patient, just like the patient making a selection of you. You can say, I'm concerned I won't be able to meet your needs, or I've said I'm not going to be able to meet your needs, and I really think you need to get some other opinions from people that you'll have confidence in. I got to the point where I was happy to say that.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I think. I mean, you can always manage with teeth, but not always with patient. So choose your cases based more on the patient than on the teeth or the occlusion or whatever. Especially in a treatment like orthodontics, where it's going to last for 6 months, a year and a half, 2 years or more.
Yeah, I would always be thinking, are you going to be nice to me? Am I going to be happy to see your name on the schedule?
Exactly. Am I going to be happy to see your name in the morning when I look at my schedule? Or is it going to be, you see a name, and it's not because of the case. It's because of the relation you have with the patient. There's no connection there. So you're not doing a root canal. You're not placing an implant. You're not You're doing a treatment that's going to last for a while. And when I say it, I say to a dentist, you are married with these patients. You're married with these patients. It's forever. They're in retention after that. And I tell patients, when we start retention, I say, this is where it starts. This is not where it ends. This is the most important part of your treatment now. So it's
Stephane, I will. Well, I'd be happy to see the patient again. Well, I'm looking forward to the next time I'll see you again.
Oh, I'm really happy that I could spend some time with you, my leader.
Oh, please. So the next time it'll be
my influencer, my leader, Gerry.
Next time it'll be number. Here it is.
Next time. Wait.
Where's your hand? Where's the hand? Okay. Number 6.
Next time, number 6. Today was number 5.
Number 5. Next time's number 6.
Gerry, be safe. Be healthy. Prepare your arm for the vaccine, because they're going to vaccine people like you first.
The elderly.
I'm talking about health care people. That's what I meant.
I thought, okay.
Yeah.
Elderly health.
The elder one. Yeah, that's
the mentally deranged. Clearly,
they're gonna give it here.
Clearly off center.
This is where they're gonna give the vaccine, directly there.
Stephane, stay well.
Take care. See you next time. Join us next time for another interesting and entertaining episode of The Odd Couple. Meanwhile, have fun making the move, always making sure that your center of rotation is outside of the box.